Alright, 6th grade, we are going to get started with lesson 7.2, use strategies to find a percent of a quantity. Now here at the top of page 213, we have our I can statement. I can write a percent as a fraction or a decimal and use multiplication to find the percent of a number. So by the time we get done with this lesson, you should be able to do all of that. Now, we're going to flip over to page 214 because we have already done Spark Your Learning in class. So, question number 1 is asking us on page 214, what is 32% of 25? You can use equivalent ratios to find 32% of 25. The first ratio is the percent. How can you express 32% as a ratio? So think back to the previous lesson. 32% is equal to 32 to 100. It's also 32 over 100, or 32 hundredths. Okay? The second ratio is a part to whole ratio. The whole is 25 and the part is unknown. Write the second ratio as a fraction. Use a question mark to represent the unknown part, then set the ratios equal to each other to find the unknown part. Okay, it sounds like we have a lot to do here with this one. So, it says to write the second ratio as a fraction, the whole is 25, and the part is unknown. Well, for the whole is 25, we're going to put that as the denominator, and then it says to use a question mark to represent the unknown part. Alright, there we go. So now we have to set the ratios equal to each other to find the unknown part, which basically means we have to use this unknown over 25 with 32 hundredths to find our equivalent fractions. So we have question mark over 25 is equivalent to 32 hundredths. Alright? What multiplication fact will help you find the unknown number? Ooh, and explain how. Well, we know that 25 times 4 equals 100. And what we do to the bottom, we have to come back up here and do to the top. So, we need to figure out what number times 4 equals 32. So, I'm going to write that down here on the lines. 25 times 4 equals 100. Figure out what number times 4 equals 32. Alright, so let's use the information we wrote here in part C to find equivalent ratios. So, blank times something equals 32. Well, we know that, let's see here, count by, no, I'm sorry, oh my gosh, back up a notch. We just should know that 8 times 4 equals 32. So 32% of 25 would be 8, because we'd have 8 25ths is equivalent to 32 hundredths. Because if we multiply them both by 4, boom. Or we could just fill it out over here on the side where, oh my gosh, you guys. Or we could just, fill it out over here on the side. So, we've got our part and our whole, 8 25ths, and 8 times 4 equals 32. 25 times 4 equals 100. Alright, on to question 2. Bree wants to save 40% of her weekly pay as a lifeguard. How much does she plan to save each week? And over here on the side, it tells us that Bree earns $250 per week. That's going to be pretty important, so we need to make sure we know that. So question A. What number should you enter into the top bar of the model? What number should you enter into each section of the bottom bar? And explain your reasoning. Okay, so for the 100% part here, I'm going to put $250 in there. So I guess I better mark that over here. 250 is equal to 100%. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to put 25 in each of those boxes because 25 goes into 250 10 times. So I'll put over here that $25 equals 10%. So how much money does Bree plan to save each week? Explain. Well, up here for number 2, it does say Bree wants to save 40% of her weekly pay. So let's come down here and take a look at our little table chart thingamajigger. If she wants to save 40%, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, 25 times 4 equals $100. That means Bree plans to save $100 each week. Alright, go ahead and turn to page 215 and we'll start there at the top with Step It Out. Use multiplication to find 45% of 80. So the first thing we need to do is write 45% as a fraction. So that would be 45 over 100. I can blank 80 by the fraction in part A to find 45% of 80. So I'm going to fill in this blank with multiply. I know that I can multiply 80 by the fraction in part A to find 45% of 80. C. Complete the multiplication to show how you could use the fraction from part A to find 45% of 80. So 45% of 80 equals blank over 100 times 80. Well, that would be 45 over 100 for your 45 hundredths. So then we have 45 times 80, which equals, oh boy, I'm going to cheat. I'm getting out my calculator. 45 times 80 should be 3,600, yes. So now we wind up with 3,600 over 100. Well, if we divide 3,600 by 100, we wind up with 36. So 45% of 80 is equal to 36. Alright, for number 4. Alyssa has to make 250 invitations for a party. Good grief. She has completed 72% of them. How many invitations has she completed? Okay, well, we know she's done 72 over 100. That's 72%, or 72 hundredths. What operation does the word of indicate? This is going to be very important. The word of always will mean to multiply. Make sure you get that written in your notes. So, write a multiplication problem to find the number of completed invitations. So if we have 72 over 100 and we multiply it by 250, we wind up with 180. So how many invitations has Alyssa completed? She has completed 180 invitations. Whoops, let's spell that correctly. Okay? Check your answer using decimal multiplication. Ooh, tricky. Write a decimal to represent 72%. Alright, remember guys, 72 over 100 is 72, also shows 72%. And when we read this particular fraction, we really should read it as 72 hundredths, which means we can put it into decimal form showing 72 hundredths, because you've got your tenths and your hundredths. Write a decimal multiplication problem to find the number of completed invitations. So we have 72 hundredths times 250. That will still equal 180 invitations. Let's do just a couple more, see how much farther we can get in the time we have. Alright, turn over to page 216. This one has several different steps to it. Scott planted 20% of a garden with roses. What is the area of the part of the garden planted with roses? Oh my goodness, so we have to figure out what this little section is right here. How can you find the total area of the garden? Oh, okay, we can multiply the length times the width. So we have length times width. What is the total area? Well, 10 feet times 5 feet equals 50 feet squared. And we know that the rose garden is 20% of the total garden. Write 20% as a ratio. That means we have 20 hundredths. Write a ratio to represent the unknown area of the garden planted with roses compared to the total area of the garden. Use a question mark for the unknown area.